The SBAC School Boundary Advisory Committee has been meeting for the last couple of months, and many of you are aware and have attended several of those meetings. And we have come up, the committee has come up with a plan for both our junior high and our secondary schools that we would like to present to the board at this time. One of our members, Maureen Del Bello, could not be here tonight. She was originally slated to present it, but she had a sick kiddo come home today, so she's home as she should be with her child. But I would like to introduce Julie Pickering and Jeff Foley at this time, the committee members who would like to do the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. King and the board, Alvin ISD School Board. What an interesting process we have been through. I'm telling you, it gives me a great appreciation for y'all. Mr. Foley, Mr. Jeff Foley and I were representing the SBAC, and we would like to thank Mr. Kevin Wells, his wisdom and guidance. I'll tell you what, we were joking that first meeting, we kind of looked like deer in the headlights when those maps came up. So his guidance, his wisdom was just invaluable. And then also I'd like to thank Templeton Demographics. We chased a lot of rabbits, and they were very patient with us. And they, we pushed them hard. I know I pushed them hard on a few things, and they were very kind and very patient. And so I'd like to, extend gratitude towards them also. Okay, so as y'all know, Manville Junior High School is going to open in fall of 2015. Shadow Creek High School is going to open in the fall of 2016. So whenever we went to these maps, we were rezoning for junior highs and we were rezoning for high school. And so we met several times. If we can go to slide 2. So we had several meetings. A couple of things about the meetings that I thought was just very important was that all of our meetings were open to the public. And if there was public attendance, they were always allowed to speak and ask questions, whether they were on the SBAC or not. We had it completely open to the public. So there were several comments from people who were not necessarily on the SBAC board, but they were parents of students in the district, so they had a very real concern about what we were doing. Another thing that I thought was very important was that we had, on all of our meeting days, as you can see, we had 2 meetings a day. We had one in the early afternoon, and then we had one in the evening, so that it could accommodate people's, different schedules, different lifestyles. So there wasn't a lot of restrictions if you wanted to attend a meeting or if you had comments. There was ample opportunity for people to give their input into these meetings, and we did. We had a lot of input. Our SBAC board was very involved. We were, like I said, we questioned Templeton Demographics every which way from Sunday. And also we moved lines here, there, and yonder. We really vetted the whole process out very well. And then, like I said, we were open to public discussion. So we had, parents there also. I recognize several faces, some of y'all were there too. Thank y'all for coming. And so you can see we've had several meetings. We started on September 22nd. That was just a general public information meeting. That was the night that if you wanted to volunteer for the SBAC, you could contact Kevin and you could volunteer to be on the SBAC. So then we went to our first meeting October 7th, then October 20th, then November 4th, Election Day, we had a meeting. That was ambitious. And then November 11th, we're here presenting to y'all. Okay, so now we can go on to slide number 3. Okay, so this is the ideal model. This is how the student growth goes, and this is our ideal model that we want to do. We want to collect the data. We want to have very, very good numbers to deal with. The numbers of school attendance. What is actually in our schools right now? Are they to capacity? Are they under capacity? We looked at all different numbers of our schools. What special programs are at which schools, and would it be better to have the special program at a different school to help alleviate overcrowding? So we looked at east side of the district, west side of the district, and I tell y'all what, wow. East side of the district, they have a legacy. They're very rooted. They are several generations going to the same schools, and they're very passionate about that their continuing generations attend the same schools. And then west side of the district, which Mr. Jeff Foley represents east side, it just worked out this way. West side of the district would be my side, and we have a very large financial interest that we purchased our homes for our schools. You know, our schools are part of our decision-making process. So we are financially tied to our schools, where we want our children to go in our schools. So this was, you know, all considered, because both arguments are legitimate arguments. You know, both arguments, both sides of it are very valid. You know, people are passionate about it and they're very valid. So we went through, it's going to look like we're going to show you a map, and I believe it's called map number 5, Kevin, right? But really there was a 1, a 2A, a 2B, a 2C, a 3, a 3A, a 3B. So y'all are going to see map number 5, but it's probably more accurately like map number 15 or 16. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jeff Foley to actually present the maps to you. Y'all know the challenges of what we're facing. Y'all know the extreme growth on the west side, and you know all the projected new subdivisions. So we had to look at that. And again, I want to say a great big thank you to Templeton Demographics. They really did their homework in providing us with all the new subdivisions coming in, and you know, try to give us accurate timelines of when they were going to be built out. And so in new apartment communities, we examined this from a very, you know, from all facets. Okay, so now I'm going to give y'all Mr. Jeff Foley.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Foley. I can operate the clicker. I'll go straight to the maps. The laser is, and this is, I won't belabor the points, but we did really start from where we were or where we are today. So you can see the green lines show and this is the junior high school boundary recommendations, but the green lines represent the existing boundaries for the junior highs. And from this point, we did many iterations of moving neighborhoods around to try and find an ideal. There really wasn't an ideal situation for everyone, but the best we could do, and being fair. And so we ended up really working to keep the size of the junior highs and the size of the high schools about equal and fair and best for the kids we could. And we swapped very small polygons, small numbers of kids around to try and equalize it as best we could and account for the growth. As you can see there, there's just no avoiding the fact there's a lot of growth on the far west side of the district, and those schools are going to grow, but they're not going to get terribly overcrowded unless, except for maybe Nolan Ryan. There wasn't a good way to divide that up without, you know, and I think we're going to have another junior high coming on right about then. But the dividing lines for Nolan Ryan really moved. You know, you see it moving north, and there's a lot of density up in that area. There was a lot of passion about how to divide these junior highs up, and I think we spent probably 50% of our time really talking about dividing where the lines were going to be for these 3 junior highs. I mean, in all of the sessions. Rodeo Palms, you know, junior high, we sort of divided this, and this is Savannah, right, out here, stays with the new Manville Junior High School. Done largely, and again, it looks a little odd, but we tried multiple iterations to divide up this area as best we could to keep the schools in a good mix of students today and the best mix we could get for these schools going forward for 3 or 4 years at least. So we ended up recommending having this subdivision be part of the new Manville Junior High School. And there were some changes, not very significant, to the far east side of the district for junior high. The very, very large oblong zone, which was Fairview Junior High, got cut down significantly. I think there were a lot of people happy with this breakdown, that Fairview no longer runs basically from Liverpool to Rocheron, but there wasn't a better way to divide this up in town. I think a lot of the kids who can walk to Alvin Junior High will be able to. The Fairview attendance zone gets smaller, but the school stays fairly large. We didn't do much modification, I don't think, to Harby, if I'm not mistaken. That one stayed very largely the same. In fact, I don't see any difference in the junior high map for Harby. If you have questions about how we divided it, feel free to ask them. We'll talk about it. I can't speak for everyone who was on the committee. There was a lot of input on how we ended up with these zones. Again, we tried pure feeders. We tried probably for 3 or 4 sessions to make these junior highs into pure feeders into the high schools. There just wasn't a way to do it without having high schools that one high school would have 3,500 kids and another one would have 1,000. So the recommendations we ended up with the high schools is this. And again, if you look, the existing boundary for Alvin versus Manville right here, you'll notice the boundary changes only very slightly for Alvin High School. There were multiple maps where we had Alvin High School changed very significantly. The attendance of many kids who live in the city of Alvin would have been in Manville. Ultimately, and I don't know if I spoke for everyone in the group, but the majority of the group really believes that we wanted to keep the kids who live in Alvin, the families that live in Alvin High School as much as we could. This is a fairly stable sized area.
And another concern we have for Alvin is there's not a lot of projected growth for Alvin. So we really want to max out Alvin High School to close to capacity because there's not going to be a whole lot of new growth there. Whereas there is going to be a lot of new growth in the Manville High School area and in the new Shadow Creek High School area. We want to leave room for growth for those high schools.
I think this polygon is one in particular. Is it Pomona? Right over here, there's Meridiana. There's 5,000 homes or something that's slated there. So it's very difficult to project what the growth was going to be in Manville. It really depends on the growth of these subdivisions. I think one thing when you look at the raw numbers, and folks on the board, many of you were in the meetings. Those of you who weren't may already know this. The actual attendance of Manville High School is going to be significantly higher than this in 2016 and 2017 because the juniors and seniors, Shadow Creek will probably have 800 or maybe 1,000 kids because it'll be freshman and sophomore and then freshman, sophomore, junior here. So Manville is going to be more probably along the lines of 2,500 kids this year in 2016-17 and probably stable thereabout in 2017-18. May dip in size a little bit for a year or two, and again, based on the demography, it'll start jumping back up, and Shadow Creek will be at capacity more or less within 4 or 5 years. So the dividing line here on we chose. I think there were a number of parents who were concerned about. They lived on this side of 288. They wanted their kids in Manville, and I think that's why we ended up with this little odd long strip here. And transportation didn't express, and my recollection was transportation didn't express that it was going to be more costly really to have these kids bused to Manville than to the new high school, Shadow Creek. So that's why we have this little peninsula here.
And let's tell them, at our last meeting, we did have the man who was head of transportation department.
Actually, he was there for probably 3 or 4 of the meetings.
Right, okay, thank you.
He was there for a lot of them.
Last meeting, we were actively asking him, how does this work with bus routes? How will this work, for bus routes? So he gave us really great input. That was some deciding factors on the very south side, and the very north side, up near 35. Really,
the only reason this zone changed was related to the railroad tracks, and there was a very small number of kids, and it's under 10. It was 8, something like a small number of kids who were affected by this change, but it was a safety issue and a timing issue, and that transportation drove this change and I think 1 or 2 others. So this was the best we could do.
And we looked at including Savannah Lakes into the Shadow Creek High School, but on the far west side of the district. But Savannah Lakes is a very densely populated area, and it would either be dividing the subdivision in half.
Yeah.
Because when you included the whole subdivision, it just busted the numbers on the new Shadow Creek High School, because that is a very dense area. There's a lot of students in that area.
Yeah. We really tried not to divide. That's, again, this division, there's a canal or something right along here. These are two separate subdivisions. So that's another reason why this division stayed here. Do we have an overlay map of the junior highs of the high schools? We don't, but if you go back and forth, they're a very high percentage of the kids, and Templeton demographics should probably tell you, will be feeding directly, if you're in Alvin Junior High, you're going to go to Alvin High School. The two junior highs that really get split are Harvey and Fairview. There's a fair number of kids in both of these schools who their friends may go to Harvey with them, and then half of them are going to go to Manville, and half of them are going to go to Manville High School. And we largely had a feeder pattern over here, I think almost exactly. So that was a lot of, I understand the energy. Parents who have kids in different schools would like to have them not traipsing all over the district. This was as close as we could come, and I think a lot of this area is generally considered to be Manville anyway. I think this is this is County Road 99 there.
Because originally, our original maps we were first dealing with was splitting the district just purely on numbers, not taking, just, okay, these students are closer to this school, let's divide by numbers. Then we had a large input from, from people that we knew and different people in our subdivisions, that they want feeder schools. They want their kids to all go to the same high school, the same junior high, the same high school, stay with the same group of friends. And when we did feeder schools, it's just not ideal. The way the schools are located, it's not an ideal situation for feeder schools. So this map that you see here, this is marrying the two together. This is really looking at the numbers, keeping the schools under capacity or right at capacity, not going super over capacity, but then also doing our very best to keep the students together, not splitting schools too much.
And I too would like to thank staff. I know the volunteers probably spent 10 or 12 hours on this. I shudder to think how many hours staff spent preparing for this. It was significantly more time, and I thought they were very fair and thorough. And I commend Kevin for doing a good job curating these meetings and not leading people on. And if you weren't at the meetings, we were a difficult and emotional group of parents, I think, and he did about as well as you could have with us. So
and we would like, as far as the parents go in the group, we'd like to ask for two things, and this is from a lot of community input. We would like to ask that students in junior high be grandfathered into their 8th grades. So in other words, if you have a 7th grader, we'd like for them to be grandfathered into their current school in the 8th grade, if that's possible. And then the other thing that we were considering that we've had a lot of family input on is on the new Shadow Creek High School, if you would consider an optional junior year, the first year, for sports and what have you. That was two recommendations that we had.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, were there any questions, comments regarding the processes or questions regarding the maps? Thank you.
Oh, Vivian has a question.
Sorry, I know I didn't talk to me about this, but just tell me one more time, because I'm just a little slow. Just let me know, just explain it again if you would. Alvin High School has more capacity than 2,500. It's not 100 more than 2,500. Now, whether that number for Alvin High School, I'm like, okay, what are we doing with those kids?
Alvin High School currently has, I believe, a permanent capacity, if my memory serves me correct, about 2740. If my memory serves me correct, somewhere right in there. So that's number one. That's above, well above the 2,500 that you've got in mind. looking at opening up the CTE Center in the near future. That is going to help alleviate some of the crowding at Alvin High School. As Ms. Pickering said, we're not anticipating the growth in the Alvin area. It's, for the most part, a zero growth area for us, and so we're not anticipating any additional numbers coming in. So we feel like with the size of the campus, the outlay of it, the 52 acres that it sits on, it can more than accommodate the 2,800 kiddos that we're talking about putting on that campus. There are buildings on that campus that are currently not being utilized for student usage. That in the event that it became too crowded, we certainly hope those buildings want to use for students.
One question, just to be clear, so there has, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, there has not been a decision made on what classes of students Shadow Creek will have their first year, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, I want to thank you and all the parents that worked so hard on the committee, I appreciate it.
And the parents did. I can't tell you how hard they worked. They, fielded questions, during the time we weren't meeting. We had good correspondence back and forth. Any questions that they had, the concerns that they had. I felt like we addressed their concerns. We literally, as Ms. Pickford said, we threw the first map up there and said, who wants to draw the first line? Because we had no lines drawn. And we went in there with both eyes wide open, a clear slate. They started drawing lines. And then we started over on the west side with Nolan Ryan. We started with our junior highs. I do remember that. And I think we started at 59, 58. It just kept working up. Looking at the numbers, kept working up until we got 518. Realized that's where that value had to be for Nolan Ryan, because that's the only way we can get the numbers where they need to be because of the densely populated area. We heard issues from parents from divided schools. Shadow Creek pretty much has pure feeder patterns with Nolan Ryan and Rodeo Falls. So a pure feeder pattern going into that campus. Manville Junior High, of course, is a pure feeder pattern in Manville High School. Then we get into the Fairview and the Harvey, which looking at it, I'm speculating here. I'm going to say 10 to 15% of those kiddos and those two attendance zones will end up going to Manville High School. The other percentages will end up going to Alvin High School. Those are our two splits. And of course, Alvin Junior High has a pure feeder in Alvin High School. I think the committee, we explored pure feeder patterns. We really looked into several options of doing that, but it really turned over some set neighborhoods to do that. Neighborhoods that have been attending, Alvin High School in this case, for generations, and the committee felt like that would be a big disruption to those families having to change to the high school. Plus, that getting them to Manville High School was going to get short because of the geographic location of them. We just got the 3 high schools within the Alvin proper area that are probably a 2-mile radius. And you look at those maps, their attendance zones kind of fan out from them, kind of like a pie shape. They go away from those high schools because they're located right in the middle of Alvin, right here in Alvin proper. So, there's still a trip from those attendance zones, but I think the committee did an excellent job in consolidating our attendance zones more so than they were, because they were, as I think Ms. Foley mentioned, Fairview used to go from Rose Sharon, literally span the district to Liverpool, which was a hike for those kiddos. Any of the kiddos going to Fairview Junior High, I've addressed a couple of concerns with parents. If my kiddo rides their bicycle, they walk to school, whatever, all students going to Fairview are bus eligible because of the nature of its location. So no children are going to have, or no students are going to have to walk or ride bikes or anything like that. They can ride a bus to Manville, or to Fairview Junior High. That was a concern that addressed by a couple of parents.
Can I, and this may help with your question about the overcrowding at Alvin, is that, can you talk a little bit about access and did I read your mind?
Yes.
And what's the enrollment capacity? What's the enrollment and what's the capacity there? Because a lot of the majority of the students go to Alvin High or come from Alvin High School, correct?
Yes, we took that into consideration. We're looking at the Alvin High School numbers, that is also including assets. We're on the same page there. So those numbers are figured in. And we figured that assets, there wouldn't be a lot of students coming from the west side of the district to assets just because of the drive, 45 minutes away. So those really do factor into the Alvin High School numbers.
Do Do you know offhand what the capacity is?
Currently, they're going, I want to say about 170 kiddos. I think they have the capacity of.
It was 300 we built, but it's been declined because of some of the special programs.
We moved the options program into there and it's taking some of those spaces. So I would say it's probably around 225 to 250, somewhere in that area.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate your dedication to this.
Sure, I just want to make a comment. I want to thank Kevin for facilitating it, and y'all, the committee, unbelievable job. I mean, it's something that you have to do for kids, even though you as a parent, you bring your emotions into it. It's something that you have to do for kids and make the right decisions. And I want to thank y'all for that.
Appreciate it. And again, I want to applaud the committee. They were able to take personal interests and set them aside. And I will brag on Ms. Pickering, I did earlier as well. She had great concern with moving from Northern Rhine to Rodeo Palms and expressed those concerns in the meeting. But I will tell you, it really gave me a great feeling because she stood up at the end of the meeting and said, okay, what we need to do is we're going to make Rodeo Palms the best high school in this district. So I applaud her for her attitude on that.
The best high school on the best everybody.
Anyway, and that was the overall attitude of the entire committee. Everybody really worked hard, and once we, they came in there, they had ideas, they had plans they wanted to pursue, they looked at them, some of them worked, some of them didn't. And I mean, they came in with an open mind, and I appreciate that very much. It made my job easier. So, thank you.
David, because what happened next, we didn't quite get that. I know a lot of us know that we probably need to let everyone know what happens after tonight.
I kept trying to rush those questions. Yes, sir. The maps will be posted on the website. We've got a question. We've got a website. We've got the entire process. We fielded several questions off of from the community as this process has been going on. We will post those maps. We will take community input and feedback. I want to say through December 1st. At that time, we'll pull that information, consolidate those questions, present that to the board. The administration will look at it as well. We come back in December 9th with the final recommendation for the board, and the administration will make that recommendation.
You did do a wonderful job. And the committee did a fabulous job. It's one of the toughest decisions that we asked community members to make.
Well, they made my job a lot easier.